Hello, everybody. Brandon here. Thanks for tuning in. If you're new, what we do around here is we're cutting the learning curve so that we don't have to spend as much time in the hospital, taking back control of our lives, not living in between seizures, learning how to live healthier, learning how to manage our seizure disorder. And today I thought I'd go over every seizure that I've had and tell you what I think caused them. And in doing so, we'll learn what it is that can cause seizures, or at least what I've learned over time, what doctors have told me. Like I said, I've had seizures ranging from every possible reason imaginable. So I'm going to go into those and I'm going to share every seizure that I've had and what I think caused them. We'll just reel them off. So, first seizure that I ever had. If you've seen my video previous, I'm sure that you might know what this one is. I had a caffeine pill and then I had my first convulsion seizure. Um, so that one, obviously, caffeine. Caffeine's what caused that one. Um, it's possible that maybe I slept in late. I will tell you that I know I've had seizures before where if I've been too stagnant, not getting a good sleep routine, that can kind of mess with it. That just puts a stress on your brain. Number two, um, I went to a day rager party, as I call it. You know, you're drinking a lot during the middle of the day, going to a day party. Drank a lot, smoked cannabis. Um, was living in Seattle at the time, so obviously marijuana is going to happen at a party. And then 2 days later, I had a convulsion seizure in a yoga class, in a room full of about 40 people, mostly girls. So I guess there's kind of a silver lining there. So that one, obviously, excessive drinking and marijuana. I think the main thing that did it was the marijuana because, at least at that moment, before around that time period, I would have maybe drank alcohol in excess and not have had a seizure afterwards. But I mean, needless to say that drinking a lot of alcohol is never too big of a help. So that one I would definitely say is just a big excess of both marijuana and alcohol. Um, and what happened was 2 days later is when I had the seizure. And so, if some of you are aware, the way that it kind of works is you'll have so much of a certain substance or whatever it is, and then it's the withdrawal that puts a certain pressure on your brain. And especially in this case, being that I have a malformation, it's putting pressure on those sensitive areas. I'm pretty sure that kind of the same sort of reasoning happens with people who both are epileptic or whatever the diagnosis may be that causes you to have seizures. So then seizure number three, 2 months afterwards, I was riding my bike up a very steep hill and I was really pedaling like hell. If you remember, I said this was the second time I thought I was going to die, or could have sworn I was going to die. Um, or perhaps this was the third. Regardless, I was pedaling up a huge hill, really exerting myself. It was at the point where it was strenuous, probably in the anaerobic state where no oxygen is getting to your brain, and then the oxygen deprivation is probably what caused it. And I should also note that 2 days before that, I got uncomfortably under the influence of marijuana. And so, of course, that's going to cause it. Number one, you have a huge use of cannabis. Number two, you have the overexertion while riding a bike. And those two, one of those alone can cause a seizure, in my case or in any case. But when you add both of those, you're likely going to have a seizure. And so there was the seizure number three. And so that brings us to seizure number four. Now, this one happened in the gym. Yet again, this was in the gym. The second one, if you remember, that was in a yoga class, which is actually at the gym. And it's interesting how the gym, a place of health and fitness, seems to be where it happens. It's just interesting in my opinion. So I smoked some weed, cannabis, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, before going to the gym because I just kind of enjoyed doing that. At this point, I hadn't quite connected the dots in terms of combining overexertion with marijuana. It hadn't happened enough, I guess, for me to really kind of put the two and two together. And I went to the gym after having smoked, and I was running on the treadmill like crazy. And then I went for a really hard workout. I was lifting without concern for breathing properly, was probably lifting more than I should have, more than really what I'm comfortably capable of doing. I'm not the biggest, as you can probably see. And on my way out of the gym, I noticed that my vision was kind of going to the left, that rhythmic shaking that I talked about before, that along kind of with my arm. Thankfully, this was just the left arm. And so, again, what we're learning from this is overexertion along with marijuana. Like I said, this seems to be kind of a constant. Most neurologists will tell people with seizure disorders this kind of stuff in general. I'm certainly finding that that's the case for me. Let's see here. Now, the fifth one, seizure number 5. Seizure number 5. I went out with a bunch of buddies, did a lot of drinking, and then I consumed a stimulant of sorts. Not really, don't really feel like sharing which kind specifically because I'm not proud of it, but we'll just say it was a stimulant. And you can use your imagination on whatever that may be. And about 2 days later, that was on a Saturday night, and then maybe about 2 days later, I was at work. I was working at a coffee shop, and I was working the front. I was working the register, and then all of a sudden, while trying to put in a guy's coffee order, I started noticing the rhythmic shaking, and right away went, okay, yeah, having a seizure at work. That's great in front of all these customers. Fell to the ground. Again, just realized, okay, cool. Seizure number 5. If my count is correct, I'm just losing track of them, honestly. And that's when I really made the conclusion that stimulants, especially aggressive stimulants, we're going to have to stay away from those from now on. It wasn't, at that point, it wasn't very conclusive if alcohol alone can cause a seizure, because I hadn't, to my knowledge at that point, I hadn't had a seizure from when I had just drank alcohol alone. It seems like it was always alcohol mixed with something. Then again, once you start mixing stuff, it doesn't, that's just kind of a recipe for disaster in any case. So, seizure number 6, I believe. I don't know. It might be 7. But moving on. Next seizure was while I was riding my bike. Again, another seizure on my bike. And I was pedaling uphill. And again, another big hill. For some reason, I love pedaling like crazy up a really big hill. There's something about the working hard and grinding, going uphill and really pushing it that I really enjoy. And so I pedal up a really long and semi-steep hill, and then I pedal up an even steeper hill, run into I've said hills enough. I think you kind of get the gist now. I was feeling a lot of the lactic acid in my thighs, on the quads, just all in the legs. You know that sensation when it's just burning, and it feels like your legs are on fire, and your legs are almost suffocating. And so I think what happened there was I entered the anaerobic state, where again, the oxygen is not sufficiently getting into your brain. Very bad if half of your right brain is malformed, where you lose oxygen and blood, and in the first place. So that's not going to be good. And so to this day, because I didn't do anything before that. Granted, I was at a yoga class beforehand, but it was nothing crazy. It was just a usual yoga class. The days before that, I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I didn't do anything that would warrant a seizure. So for that one, it was overexertion. It was very much just overexerting myself. And that anaerobic state, not letting oxygen get to your head. So I went from aerobic to anaerobic. Something to look into if you're not familiar with it. But my description there is basically what it is in a nutshell. And so moving on to the next one, I was at a yoga class, and I was waiting out in the lobby of the of the building, the foyer, I guess, foyer, whatever you want to call it. and just out of nowhere, I felt the aura coming on, and what I concluded that this one was from was I actually had, though a small amount, I had a little bit of marijuana the day beforehand, day or 2 days before that. And this yoga class was particularly pretty tough. The instructor who taught it, she's notorious for making classes sweaty and getting a real good workout. This was a particularly gruesome yoga class. Oftentimes when you think of yoga, you think of just stretching and, not much. But this instructor really knows how to make you sweat and make you work. And so I think, again, we have that overexertion. And in this case, it wasn't even so much overexertion, because I do that class to this day and I'm fine. But there was the exertion along with the marijuana piece the days beforehand. So what I'm certainly learning is that, there's really not much room for error with this, which is why nowadays I'm not drinking any more caffeine, no marijuana. Alcoholic beverages is at an all-time low. I really couldn't even tell you the last time I had an alcoholic beverage. It's just, and it's not even fun anymore because, being on 3 different meds, that's not going to make drinking as fun. The hangovers are terrible. So moving on to the next seizure. I lost count by this point. I guess I'm just telling you the seizures I've had and just what I've learned from them, how substances interact with each other, especially with the meds. So, on to the next seizure. This one, so now this next seizure, by this point, I'm doing well. I'm thinking, oh, this is awesome. It's been about 2 months now since my last seizure. Great, things are awesome. Like, who knows? Maybe I'll get to drive again. Well, nope. Again, I don't ever get my hopes up with that because I just don't. It's foolish to do that. I went to a coffee shop with one of my fellow yoga instructors. We just went there with our laptops to get some stuff done. I got 1 cup of coffee, just a latte, like a medium latte. And then I walk home. I just wash my hands, go to the bathroom, wash my hands. And I'm walking. All of a sudden, I notice like, oh boy, it's another one. Great. Awesome. I was waiting. I missed you, Seizures. I was wondering when you'd show up again. And this one was also scary. I was at my apartment, was by myself. And then thankfully it didn't hit my legs, so I was able to kind of run down the stairs of my apartment and knock on our neighbor's door, hoping that someone would be home and that they could put these meds under my tongue. And I'm like leaning against their door while shaking, my head's shaking, my arm is too, and then I even open up the door to I open up the door of the apartment. So now I'm like outside, and then I knock on the door of the other unit that we share the building with. So not people that you would see inside the building. And I'm ringing the doorbell there, and people who are driving across, driving are outside can see me. I don't know if anybody did, but this just adds kind of an element to kind of the drama of it, I guess I could say. Just, it was interesting. And so I ring on those people's doorbell, nobody's home. And so it's, again, it's kind of scary. And it just seemed like just kind of an epic and sort of scary moment. I don't know if that's the best way to put it. And I'm on the ground, I'm still having my seizure, and then it ends, thankfully, and I was able to just, with one hand, unscrew the necklace here and pop a clonazepam, one of my emergency med. I'm sure some of you may be familiar with that. So, moving on to the next seizure, I don't know if this is number 9 or number 10. I'm just sitting at home. It's been 2 months now. I don't know if I've said before, it seems like 2 months is kind of my average in terms of when I have my seizures. Anyway, something I should mention now is that that was the last time I had any caffeine. I'm about 2.5 months in now of having no caffeine whatsoever. I've given up coffee completely. Well, I drink decaf. Decaf is fine, of course, but I don't drink caffeine. I'm just done. I'm too afraid of it. And I was just sitting at home. Thankfully, both my roommates were there. I'm just sitting on the couch. All of a sudden, I get the aura. I don't know if you guys get auras before you have a seizure. And for me, when I get them, I just get this sense of, like, I don't even know where I am. I'm just, like, in a primal state. I forget what my name is. I don't know where I am. Nothing makes sense to me. It's like I have no clue what's going on. I don't know where I am. It's the craziest thing. It's hard to explain. But for some of you out there, I'm interested if if you get something similar to that, or what goes through your head right before a seizure, or if you get an aura anyway. And so that was the last one that I had up to this day, especially and these are all, I'm talking convulsion seizures. Do let me know if you have any questions in terms of how long it took me to recover, which body parts were affected, and all that stuff. And so there we go. If there's anything to be taken from this, it's that if you are currently trying to figure out what medicine is best for you, lifestyle-wise, lifestyle changes that you may need to make, and anything along those lines, my biggest suggestion to you is you're just going to have to suck it up for 6 months to maybe 2 years. I'm about 6 months or more in with, no marijuana, very, very limited alcohol. And keep in mind, just not too long ago, I was a college student in Seattle, Washington, of all places. Take a moment, think about what life was like as a college student in Seattle, where there's, whatever it's worth. And so what you're going to have to do is just acknowledge that, things are a lot different for you. The number one responsibility, for the most part, when you have a seizure disorder, especially in the beginning, is to figure out what meds work for you. And the only way that that can be made possible and done successfully is to hold everything else constant. Really what it is I just look at my life right now as a science experiment, because I need to figure out what meds work best, what side effects do certain medications have, so that I can figure out how I can live my life best, because I want to have a career. I want to get a good job. I have certain, I know which job it is that I'm looking for and the responsibilities that requires. I'm not going to be able to type on a laptop or even work. Say I get the opportunity to work from home. I'm not even going to be able to type on a laptop if my left arm is numb and isn't worth anything. So right now I need to figure out what meds work. And the only way to do that is to hold everything else constant. That means no caffeine, no stimulants, no depressants, no caffeine, no coffee, no energy drinks, no alcohol. I'm at the point now where I just don't even want to drink because the headaches are so bad. And just the interaction with the medicine is just terrible. Don't get me wrong, I miss drinking and smoking. Of course, I'm 22 years old. That stuff's fun. But if I'm ever going to get this figured out, there's no half-assing it. It's the most binary decision that you'll ever make in your life. Especially, if you have a seizure disorder, and especially I know for myself, either I do it and I do it right, which means no substances such as stimulants, depressants, all that stuff, no substances, and figure out the meds, or you half-ass it and you're likely going to have seizures and you'll never know for sure. So, like I said, it's a big science experiment. Everything held constant except for the meds, because you got to figure out the meds. That's the most important thing. And, of course, making sure the sleep schedule is good. I used to go to bed slightly late, sleep in. My sleep schedule wasn't that good. Nowadays, it's 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock is the goal. I'll go to bed earlier, 9:30, but 10 o'clock is when I try and go lights out. Wake up usually before 7. That sleep range is usually ideal, especially kind of if you're in your 20s, really at any age. I mean, again, I'm no doctor, but I just know that that's the sleep range you want to shoot for. And the most important thing is to keep it routine. You know, it's one thing if you're getting up early, maybe every now and then, but you need to just establish a sleep routine so that your body can expect something. You know, it's the spikes. Like if the spikes are what cause the seizures. For example, when you drink a lot and smoke a lot, you're drinking, smoking, and then when you stop, and your brain is expecting more, but then when you just stop cold turkey, those spikes, that's where the seizures come from. That withdrawal, the high amount of whatever, and then you stop cold turkey, it drops. That right there, that variance is what causes the seizures. And I mean, a lot of this, you know, you might be thinking, what do you know? You're not a doctor. But I mean, if you think about it, a lot of it's just common sense. And I mean, with anything. So that was today's video, guys. I hope you learned something. Maybe you thought about something a different way. Hope, or at least enjoyed it. And something I'd also like to mention is I've spoken with some people who are nurses. I've got some friends who are PAs, physician assistants, and other friends who are in the healthcare industry. And when I tell them about my story, my diagnosis, everything I'm telling you here, they seem rather fascinated by it. So by all means, please share this with people who are in the healthcare industry or any sort of professional in the healthcare industry. And I'm sure that maybe they'll get something out of this, and they'll have patients and colleagues who perhaps know of someone with a seizure disorder. Again, it's all about spreading the message and sharing the knowledge with everybody, as many people as we can. So, as always, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you around. Stay healthy. Bye-bye.